morning. Welcome back to Archetype. I want to start with a story about moi and my professional self-destruction. This was a big crash out that I had about 12 years ago. I was working in this massive open concept salon. I mean, massive, like 10 to 15 hairdressers in a big open space, right? So, and I was positioned dead center in it. So around me were 360 degrees of noise in every single direction. 15 stylists talking at the same time to their clients, 15 blow dryers potentially going off at the same time. Just conversations and noise stacking on top of each other in this very big building with huge ceilings, and it was all day, every day. At this point in my career, I was way overworking. Also, I didn't have any boundaries around my schedule. In fact, people that had boundaries baffled me. And I was actively taking classes at this time that kept pushing me to work harder and more. And so I thought I was constantly fucking up, and that's what I needed to do. I did not understand that I could lean on my own truth. And I didn't know anything about human design, but my nervous system did. And my nervous system was not okay in this time period. Eventually, I started drinking super heavily at work. And then one day I got blackout drunk at work. And I didn't hurt anyone, thank God, but I did lose my job. And I carried the shame of that for years. I've always been a person that has been overly worried about what other people think of me. And so I really created the conditions for myself to, have to bear that. And I convinced it that it meant something fundamental about who I was as a person, right? So it wasn't until I found human design that I understood what had actually been happening in that environment. I have a physiology that takes everything in, every sound, every word, every shift in the room. And what I actually need is much more like a cave. And what's hilarious is I built this for myself also pre-human design understanding. So I was so proud of myself to realize, like, wow, underneath all of it, I gave myself what I needed in the long run, but I needed a small contained space, one entrance where my chair faces that doorway, right? A space where my body can stop white-knuckling its way through every day. And when I looked back at the salon environments that I had really thrived in, they were always these smaller cave-like structures, right? But I would have never known that had I not ever discovered human design. So when I understood that, finally something shifted inside of me. Not really because the story had changed. I know I talk a lot in here about changing our stories. It really didn't. But I could finally see it clearly, and the shame didn't require willpower to dissolve. Understanding it dissolved it. Does that make sense? So that's gate 42, which we just moved into. That's what detachment actually does. So welcome to Archetype. Again, I'm Joan. Let's jump in. We are in 42, which goes by a few names. Human design calls it finishing things. The I Ching calls it increase. And the gene keys call it the way of detachment. All three are pointing at the same thing. The art of bringing something to a natural close, the finisher, and trusting that the space you create by doing it is exactly what comes next. It lives in Aries. We are still in Aries season, in the synergy miracle circuitry, and it belongs to the codon ring of life and death, the codon ring that holds the codes for how our souls enter and leave form, the physical body. Birth, death, completion, beginning. This is not a gate we mess around with. Its programming partner is 32. So right now the Earth is in gate gene key 32, which is about continuity, which wants to preserve what's been built, right? So these kind of buck up against each other, but they actually really support each other. 32 says hold on. 42 says let go. Together, they create a very human tension that most of us are really intimately familiar with. The mastery here, knowing exactly what needs to be completed to make room for something new. The unbalanced version is a graveyard of half-finished projects or forcing premature endings just to escape the discomfort around not done yet. Sound familiar? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about here in any of your projects, relationships, work environments? All right, that's what we're working on today. So the shadow is expectation. Expectation can really get us into trouble. It's a game. Hope shows up first, which is very clean and alive. It's this impulse towards something better, right? That part's fine. Hope is fine. That part is literally the energy of evolution moving through you. The problem isn't hope. The problem is what happens when the mind gets a hold of hope. Hope then becomes a picture, and the picture gets a timeline. And then the timeline gets requirements. And then suddenly you're not experiencing life anymore. You're just auditing it constantly, checking. Is this matching the version that I approved of in my head? And then when it doesn't, and it never does, because life is chaotic and humans are unpredictable and nothing follows a script, right? The gap between expectation and reality produces disappointment. If that happens enough times, disappointment stops being an emotion and it kind of becomes our personality, a whole orientation towards life. Low bar, preemptive cynicism, trust issues with the universe. Gotta know how. How is it gonna happen? And you know the type because you're probably recognizing it within yourself. You might be this type right now. And in the body, we've been talking for weeks now about bracing, the low grade tension of constantly measuring. And it shows up as holding on to things that are clearly done. Jobs, relationships, identities, because the ending feels worse than the discomfort of staying, forcing things to close before they're ready because the not finished is so unbearable we just can't handle it. Or you've got this backlog of half finished projects that are silently judging you from across the room every time you glance at them. Resentment when people don't meet the need that you had pictured in mind for them. I said that sloppy, but you get it. They never agreed to that, but that's a separate episode. And ancestrally, this can run really deep, right? Lineages where endings were treated as failure. Families that stayed in situations past all reason because it felt stable. Cultures that equated change with danger and continuity with virtue. 42 codes for leucine. Leucine holds these patterns at a cellular level. Leucine is the amino acid that kicks in after stress to begin to initiate the repair rebuild stage, but it can only activate after the breakdown cycle completes. The body can literally not regenerate without registering that something has finished. So gripping past completion doesn't just feel exhausting, it biologically interferes with whatever is going to come next in our storyline. Your cells have been trying to tell you this the whole time. You just didn't understand, and that's okay. You weren't listening, not on purpose, but because we can't until we have this moment of understanding. The gift here is detachment. Detachment gets a bad rap, and let's address that directly, because most people hear it and then they picture someone sitting in a linen outfit, not caring about anything while the rest of us are on fucking fire. And that isn't it. Detachment isn't distance. It's not performing neutrality or evolving past your feelings even, pardon me, or becoming someone whose okayness doesn't depend on anything external. You're allowed to care. You're allowed to want things. And none of that goes away. What does change is the grip on it. The gift of 42 is being able to care about outcomes without requiring them to go a specific way in order to be okay. I'm going to say it one more time. The gift of 42 is being able to care about outcomes without requiring them to go a specific way in order to be okay, right? It's the difference between holding on to something and white-knuckling it, between hoping and measuring, between being present in your life and auditing it from a distance with a clipboard and a red pen. That's how this gate works at a gift level. It's not through willpower, it's through clarity. And the paradox, because these always have them, is that the more detached you become, the more present you become, the more you can actually enjoy what's in front of you, because you're not spending half your attention somewhere else measuring the current moment, right, against what you thought it was supposed to be. Detachment opens the heart. That's the whole punchline. And then the highest level of this is celebration. Who would have ever thought that detachment and celebration could be together, right? And the same. It's not the party kind of celebration with a hat and a countdown, but the kind that's available in the middle, not at the beginning and not at the triumphant end, but right in the unresolved, still unfolding, nobody knows how it turns out, middle of your actual life. There's a reason that Douglas Adams chose 42 as the answer to life, to the universe, and everything else in The Hitchhiker's Guide. The joke only lands when you've received your need for the answer to make sense. I'm going to say that again because I said it wrong. The joke only lands when you've released your need for the answer to make sense, when you can hold the absurdity and find it delightful instead of infuriating. I don't know about you guys, but in the last few weeks, I have just been repeating this statement over and over again. I'm like, life is absurd. The fact that we would expect anything else from it is a joke. And that is ironically really where we need to be coming at this. We are in a video game. If we were playing a real video game, we wouldn't be taking it as seriously. This video game feels very real, right? It's so meta to be playing video games instead of video games. But if we could really approach it that way, we could really add some levity and let go of the fucking game control, right? So the ring of life and death holds all of it, the births, the deaths, the endings that felt like losses, the beginnings that started before you really felt ready. The highest vibration here, the city says, what if all of it is worth celebrating? Not because it was all good, but because it was all alive. Leucine is an essential amino acid. You can't make it yourself. You have to take it in through your diet, and its job is tissue repair and regeneration after stress, and that part matters. Like I said earlier, it doesn't activate until after the exertion phase is complete, which means that the body cannot begin rebuilding until it registers that the current cycle is finished. Holding on past completion just feels like suffering, and it literally blocks the biological mechanism that for renewal. 42 also corresponds to the ovaries and testes. So we're talking about the sacral chakra here, organs that run on cycles, right? The testes run on a circadian rhythm 24/7, and the ovaries run in a 28-ish day lunar cycle. Rest, begin again, rest. The body has been practicing this its entire life. Endings aren't foreign to it. They're built in by design. Think about your lungs every time you take a breath. That's a complete cycle. Your body can't be exhaling and inhaling at the same time. So ask yourself what endings look like in your family. Were they acknowledged? Were you allowed to talk about it? Was it given space, or did they get bypassed? The divorce that became a rough patch, or the grief that got folded back into productivity, maybe, a loss in your life that wasn't named because it made someone else uncomfortable to talk about it. Did your lineage hold on past the point of wisdom, staying in situations, roles, identities, because the unknown felt more dangerous than familiar discomfort? Or did endings come suddenly? No ceremony, right? Just leaving no room to integrate whatsoever. Either pattern lives in the body at a cellular conviction. Endings are to be feared, rushed, or just avoided entirely. But 32, the programming partner here, carries the shadow of fear, specifically the fear that what's good will be lost if you let it go. When 42 is working with that unresolved, you get the holding pattern, unable to complete because completion feels like death. So the real work here is giving endings their due. Not rushing them, not dragging them, but just actually completing them with some kind of acknowledgement. Whether it could be very private, that lets the body register this chapter is done and I'm okay. So here is what to watch out for in this 6-day window. I'm actually totally letting go of any of the shadow things. And now we're just focusing on the gifts. This is what we're looking out for this week. A moment of genuine release, not something manufactured, not something manufactured, something that just let go. The satisfaction of listening, starting over again, the satisfaction of actually finishing something, the full body exhaled. I'm really struggling to talk all of a sudden. I don't know why. The satisfaction of actually finishing something, the full body exhale of a closed loop, right? A check mark off the to-do list, a shift in an old story. Same facts, different relationship to them. I tell that story about losing that job in that salon way differently now, right? I have a lot more information about it. Ultimately, the story stayed the same, but I've got more space, more air. And then small celebrations. I said this last week, but noticing something is good right now without reaching past it. The shadow of 42 teaches us through disappointment. And if you've accumulated a lot of it, I'm not going to tell you that that was all just misplaced expectation and you should have known better. That would be its own kind of shadow, right? But here is the reframe. Leucine can't do its job until the exertion is over. And your cells already know this. They practice it constantly. Completion isn't failure. It's the biological requirement for what comes next. So what if the chapter that you've been calling your biggest mistake was just a chapter? What if it was complete the moment that it ended? And the only thing keeping it alive as a wound was you. Finish things and let them be finished, and trust that what you make room for is exactly what needed the space. Meet me in part 2, guys. I'll see you in a few minutes and we'll tap on this to release some of this grip from the nervous system. Cheers.